Hi.
What's up, squad?
That's gonna be really loud, and you're rusty.
Welcome to Shap's basement.
What episode is this?
Literally could not tell you.
7?
Oh. It might be or it might be not. Couldn't tell
7. All right, so we wanted to. You keep putting it down the wrong way.
I'm literally so sorry. Okay.
Okay, we wanted to kind of address an issue that came into our lives what day was it?
Thursday.
This last Thursday.
What?
At the high school. I'll
When
let you
is this
talk.
coming out? Thursday.
Dude, it just depends. I don't know.
Last week or 2 weeks
this is
ago.
Dylan, by the way. Dylan.
Oh yeah,
Griffith.
Dylan and Carter.
It's the first returning guest.
If you saw our second, was he our second episode?
Third?
No,
Third.
I was third.
Yeah, Camille
If you
was
saw
second.
our third episode, or fourth, because our third
I
was
think it
just
was
you,
fourth.
me, and Quentin.
The first
Okay.
one was y'all, then Eddie. Or no, it was Eddie, then just y'all, I think, then Camille, and then me.
Yeah.
So Carter was our fourth episode. So if you've seen that, then you're familiar. If you haven't, stop this video, go back and watch it, and then come back to the video.
We need the views. Also,
So-
the AC is on again, so
Oh, it's big rips.
It's okay.
it's fine.
That's right.
It'll go off, and then you'll be able to hear us even better.
Okay,
yeah, go ahead.
so.
Go ahead.
Oh my gosh, thank you. Guys, this is my feature I've been waiting for. Okay, so basically, last week we had a little bit of a crazy thing going on. So basically, I'm pretty good at telling stories. So I was getting into my car and, getting ready to go to work, turn on my car,
After
down the
school?
parking brake, after school. And I started to, pull out of the lot. I was just just driving a little bit out of the school parking lot. This was at about, 3 o'clock, right at dismissal. And I'm driving, and, I see something in the distance, a big sign. And I'm
a
like,
whole 20 feet.
a whole 20 feet distance, a big sign. And I'm like, oh, that's weird. That's not usually there. So, adjust my glasses, squint a little bit. And I see that it reads, "Don't be like your parents, end baby killing." And I'm like, wait, that's not usually there.
That's not usually at a public high school.
So I keep driving, and I'm like, So I see, our school resource officer, some security guards, and I see that there's a plethora of...
Good word.
Great vocab.
Thank you. I see that there's a plethora of people who are, I would say,
They're protesting
50
for
years old and up.
50. Are they 50?
They were all white, 50 years old and up.
Say 60.
60 and up, maybe.
They yelled at Carter. He had a close interaction.
Carter had a
But
close interaction.
So they were protesting. They were protesting because they believed it was pro-life. They were pro-life, and
Yeah.
that's their belief, and good for them for wanting to get their word out. But the issue that we had with it was less that they wanted to get their message out there, and more that the way that they went about it. And
they were slightly belligerent
And that's-
towards high school students.
So we wanted to have Dylan on. So Dylan, would you say you're pro-life?
Yeah, I'm pro-life. I would actually consider myself to be pro-life for about 3 years. That's since I've felt like I was educated enough to consider myself pro-life. Yeah, I've done hours and hours of research. I've discussed.
So
debated.
educated, and that's why I wanted to have him on, was to kind of we wanted to have a discussion. We saw this as an
we wanted
opportunity.
to have a conversation.
That's the important distinction. It's I see the generation of our parents kind of taking sides and sticking so hard that they won't budge on their belief, and they and that's an issue, I feel like, because we want to have a conversation. We all saw this, the hosts at least saw this, and we were like, look, this is an opportunity to have a conversation. It's an opportunity to grow.
We don't want to bash on anyone's
Yeah.
beliefs or say that our beliefs are right or someone else's beliefs are wrong or anything like that. We just kind of wanted, it was something that was so close to home for us, right at our high school. And it was, I think for me, some, a few people yelled at me and stuff. And I felt like it was pretty, it shook me up a little bit, you know what I mean? I was a little ooh, I'm not used to it.
What did they say to you? What did they say to you, Carter?
So there's this
Make sure you're
one
talking
lady,
Yeah.
There was this one lady, I don't know, dude, probably, it was mid to late 60s. and I'm just minding my own business, walking home from school, and she comes up yelling at me, like holding a sign, and she was like, "Oh, like you're stupid. You're not being raised the right way. Your parents are killing babies." Like a bunch of just stuff that like.
First of all, they didn't even know who his parents
they
were.
Don't know, like,
Like-
around me. So like from my point of view, I'm just a kid walking. I was kind of on the later side of dismissal, so there wasn't really kids around me, and I was like, did I say something? Like, was I looking at her wrong? I was like, why is she yelling at me? And then I kind of looked around, and there was a big group of them, and I was like, started to walk away, and I turned around, and I was like, just trying to give her my opinion, and I was like, you guys are kind of going about it the wrong way. Like, I was like, if a high schooler is leaving school, like, no high schooler, like, a lot of us, like, after we leave school, we want to be done with like the teachers. And
people talking
No one's
at
gonna-
us.
So like when I'm walking home, the last thing I want is an old lady to be yelling at me about like my parents killing babies. Like no, I was like, you guys are going about
but
it all the wrong
that's
way.
and
this
like
is not how to get you, like side of the story.
that's the main thing that we had. Like it was like, if you, what'd you say? Like 90% of the people don't know, no matter what the issue is. If you're trying to do something and when they're walking out of school and you're yelling at them, nobody is gonna have any patience for that. And that's regardless of the issue.
And like I was driving, I had my windows down, which was a wrong choice. And I had my windows down and I was driving and I kind of like drove a little bit and I was stopped at a light, because there's a light like right outside of our school. And I was a few cars back, so I was like right next to where they were. And some guy, like, he was wearing a sweatshirt that said, like, abortion is murder. He was holding a sign and stuff. And then he, like, screamed in my window, and he was like, abortion is murder, like, stop. And I was like, ah! And I was like, stop yelling at me. So I just, like, was just like, oh my God. And I was like, looking at the light, I was like, And so then I just, like, you know, decided to put my belief, you know, out there. If he was trying to yell at me, I was like, you know, I'm just going to tell him back. So I just said, you know, I just raised my voice a little bit. I just said out the window, I was like, my body, my choice. And then he called me stupid, and then I just kept driving.
So that's the thing. We wanted to get a real point of view, and we wanted to give our points of view, and we wanted to educate you guys on making your own decisions, because that's what this country is about. It's a free country.
Yeah.
And so
just communication in general, I feel like that's the main problem.
Yeah. Not even like educate you guys, but just like show you guys that like you can like communicate with people and
work
like
together.
Work together with people who maybe like don't have the same beliefs as you, because like it's okay if not everyone has the same beliefs as you. And I think like at this point there's a lot of like political tension and everything, and so you automatically kind of just like get really like uptight and like, and everyone, I mean, I do this like at first, you know, you get, when you feel strongly about something, you get really like, you know, intense about it. So I think like it's just important that we like show that you can have a discussion and you can like talk about it. And you know, we haven't really talked about anything.
You can hear us now, yeah?
We haven't really talked about anything like this on the podcast before. It's kind of been like stuff with, you know, people and kind of like just more surface level topics. So, you know, I thought we could dive a little deeper into the podcast and kind of talk about some things that maybe like people don't, you know,
expect us to talk about.
Yeah.
Think it's a good idea for us to talk about. My dad literally said, be very careful what you say. And that's the thing. I was like, look, we're not being real. I mean, we're being opinionated, but we're not doing it in a way that's going to make anybody look down on us. So so with that being said,
if you easily get offended or you feel like this might make you upset, I totally understand. So maybe click off the video.
We got the view. You've watched it.
Or, you know, just we'd love to hear from you guys. You know, follow us on Instagram.
At Shap's Basement Podcast.
Sorry, I took it away before you finished. And, you know, send us a DM. Let us know what you think. You know, if there's something you guys want us to talk about that's maybe something like this that you, like, didn't think we would want to talk about before, just hit us up. Tell us.
Yeah.
We'd love to talk about it.
Yeah. So let's get into it. So the first thing is, when you saw the protest, I know it upset you.
It did.
What is your belief as far as, like abortion goes, just like in general, like there are obviously special cases.
So my belief personally, my belief personally is, does it end after 10 minutes or 20 minutes?
20.
Okay.
Yeah. We'll figure it out.
So my belief personally is that, you know, a woman, it's her body, and, you know, pregnancy is something that is extremely long, excruciating, you know, can cause a lot of problems. And in my opinion, I just believe that a woman should be able to choose, you know, what happens with her body. And I feel like, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then, and so you're saying.
So I'm pro-choice.
Yeah. So, but basically.
Wait. I just want to say that one thing. All I want to say is that I think a lot of people, when they hear pro-choice, they just assume like pro-abortion. Like they're like, oh, you're pro-choice, so you're like, yeah, let's like abort babies. But like, in my opinion, that's not what pro-choice is. Pro-choice just means that you believe that a woman should have a choice of what happens. It doesn't mean that I'm like, oh yeah, every woman that gets pregnant, you should get an abortion. Like that's always should be the first choice. Or that it's
an easy decision, or that it's something like obviously it's last resort.
Yeah, and it's not like an easy, you know, you're not just like, oh, having an abortion, haha. Like it's not like that. I just believe that there should be a choice involved in that happening.
Yeah, and then so Dylan, obviously pro-life. We'll let him talk a little bit about like what he believes, some of the research he's done, some of the things that like he values a bit, like specifically because obviously like it's a broad kind of subject, and there's obviously certain things and certain situations that makes him believe that abortion shouldn't necessarily be, you know, used. So
yeah. So just like a little bit of background, I was raised like Roman Catholic, so I've been kind of involved in like the church and stuff. So I also have a spiritual, just a spiritual attachment to the subject also. But overall, though, I wasn't really raised one way or the other. My parents, they didn't really have an opinion on it. They kind of let me make my own political decisions. I'm not, you know, I'm conservative on some issues and then liberal on others. But when it comes to this, I don't really see it as a political issue. I see it more as a moral one. So going back to like what Katie said, it's just this is kind of like where the crossroads meet. Like I believe that the child inside the woman is a human being in itself, and I also agree. You know, a woman should be able to do whatever she wants to, like her body. But I just believe that the child is a separate being, and does not deserve to have its fate determined for it.
So that's like obviously like that's it makes sense. Like the idea that it's like it's going to be a life. Obviously, it's not yet, but it's the idea that
Yeah, it kind of like that's another like crossroads, like where it becomes a life. Personally, I believe that it's a life at conception. You know, it has its chromosomes, like it literally has its personality picked out at conception. But like people can argue at different points in the pregnancy where it becomes a human. At only like 3 weeks, it's already pumping liters of blood. So, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So basically, what I was trying to say is like as far as like before, like obviously you're pregnant, which means you're going to have a baby. Like that's like that.
Dylan is pregnant.
Joe
said, I mean, obviously you're pregnant.
Oh no, so the issue that I see is like it's obviously like it's growing. It's an organism.
Mm-hmm.
Like the thing that I think is important, at least from my point of view, that like makes me really skeptical is that like it, but like I don't even remember when I was 1, 2. So it's like at that point, like obviously like and like we said, like it's not like abortion isn't something that you go to just because like there's no reason really that a baby should have to be aborted. It's a hard decision. It's not something that people want to do, but the reason that people do it is because like let's say okay, so you get pregnant. Sorry. You're good. Someone gets pregnant and they might not be bringing the baby into a good situation. So before, let's say it has conscious thought, if they know it's not going to be a good situation for the baby to be brought in, like I think it's a better decision to get an abortion maybe and try at a time where maybe you're more financially able to support that baby. And obviously I know there's things like adoption and stuff like that in the foster system.
Yeah, there are a lot of those opportunities.
But it's like the point is like it's sometimes the foster care systems aren't great. Like there's so many different, like maybe it doesn't end up with the right family. And especially if the family wants a kid and they can't like afford it at the time, whatever it is, and they want a kid, and they it's like maybe the law is that their abortions aren't legal in this hypothetical world, right? So now they have the baby and they have to put it up for adoption, and maybe that's strain on them because they want to have a baby, they just can't at the time. Like those are and I don't know what you think about. I don't know, because in AP Gov we learned about a lot of this stuff and like the views. What's your view on like if a woman is raped or something like that? Because I know a lot of the conservative views are kind of like if rape is part of the case, then it could be legal. It just depends on like what's your view on
I think the only problem I think the only problem with that is that like then it gets into the question of like it's legal if it was like rape, but like who proves that a woman was raped, and then it gets into the whole system, justice system,
obviously
and then it like gets into
that's an issue. So let's say
that's the only
let's say hypothetically it like we know for a fact that it was rape.
There you
go. Okay, so
then what's your view on that? Like,
okay, so what we're doing is we're coming down to the less than 1.5%.
Okay.
So this is very little to none cases when it comes to abortion. But obviously rape and incest is a terrible thing. It should never ever happen. But I'm not here to pretty much tell a woman like with mental like after taking like that mental toll and stuff. But I just want people to consider the life of the baby. Like, well, the baby, it's innocent. The baby didn't do the raping or anything. So I just believe that it deserves a chance, even though if its dad's a fucking or fudging, sorry, this is a plane. Like an asshole who deserves to be locked up forever. But yeah, I just see it as a completely separate being, innocent. So yeah, those are my thoughts.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so what do you think? Oh, go ahead.
Okay, this isn't about the same thing we were just talking about. It's just something that I was thinking about. So, as we were talking about earlier, is like when someone is accidentally or whatever, they don't have the means to like bring a child into the world and stuff. I think a lot of people go straight to there's foster care and adoption and stuff. But what I would just like want to say, do you want to stop it first?
No. Yeah.
Okay. Is this still recording? Yeah. Okay. All I would want to say is that like I think that a lot of people who are like really pro-life. We're back. But what I was basically saying. Okay, thank you for that. Yeah. So basically, what I was saying was that if someone doesn't have the means to bring a child into the world at the moment, I think a lot of people argue that we have foster care and adoption, etc. But I think that if someone is really passionately pro-life and feels like there should be no cases of abortion or anything, I think that those people need to also be advocating and working towards making a better foster care system, because 100%. I think that like our foster system is really corrupt, and like I know people who have is it still like going? Okay. I know people who have like I've heard stories of people in the foster care system, of kids in the foster care system who have just grown up like having terrible lives and like literally like just don't like want to be here and like never going to be able to make something of themselves because of like the way that they grew up. So I think that, like, something that's really important is, like, if you are pro-life, like, that's your belief. But I think that if you are, then you also need to be believing that we should actively be changing our foster care system, because otherwise it, like, kind of doesn't go hand in hand. And another thing that I just, like, want to touch on, and I'm not saying this is you at all, but I think, like, some people who are pro-life, like, obviously it doesn't have to be, like, political, but I think a lot of people who are pro-life also usually lean towards the conservative side of things. And something that I sometimes have a hard time with, something that I struggle with when I hear about people who are really conservative, but they also, like, and they also consider themselves really pro-life, is that the term pro-life is kind of hard for me to, like, wrap my head around, because a lot of the same people who say that they're pro-life don't care when, you know, there's a school shooting and 20, you know, children get their lives taken because, oh, it's our Second Amendment right to, you know, bear arms, and they don't care about that. But then when it comes to abortion, they care, even though it's Roe v. Wade, you know, it was in the Supreme Court, and it's our constitutional right to be able to get an abortion. So sometimes I struggle with that, because I think that the term pro-life is, like, if you're pro-life, then you should be pro everyone's life, not just, like, pro a fetus's life. You should be pro-life for the kids who are getting killed in schools. You should be pro-life for the people who are hungry on the streets. You should be pro-life for the African Americans being killed by police officers. You should be pro-life for people in other countries who are in, like, civil wars. So that's just something that, like, I sometimes, like, have a hard time with.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Like I said, I'm not saying this is Dylan
no.
at all. Just you know.
One of my, like, more liberal views is, like, I'm very, very anti-war. I believe in taking any necessary steps to, like, avoid it. It's terrible. Any death in general is terrible. It's not the job of a human to take another human's life. Say that. That's my main stance on that.
Yeah. So
see, and that's something that I liked.
so
it makes a little bit more sense to me when I hear that. But when I hear, you know, someone who's like, oh, I'm pro-life, but then they're like, you can't take away my gun because even though it shot a child. I'm like, wait.
So it's like that. Like, that was the one thing that, the one, like, kind of thought that I had when I was literally in the shower. The shower thoughts, you know how it is. But I was literally in the shower the other day, and I was like. I don't know what your stance is on guns or anything like that. Either way, it doesn't really matter. The fact is that the argument of a lot of conservatives that are, like, that want their gun rights is that it's their right, it's their Second Amendment right to bear arms. Mm-hmm. I was thinking, well, how is it, if they want that right, conservatives want that right, then, and I understand there's a life involved, I guess, but if it's the woman's right to kind of choose whether they have a baby or not, then you shouldn't ask for one thing and not the other. And the other thing, before we keep going, is this is the part of the show where it's kind of like we've both said our sides, everyone said their side, and now it's just, like, discussion and trying to kind of, like, figure out what we can do, because I see a lot of, like I said, our parents' generation, and they say their side, and then they just kind of sit there like this, like, okay, well, now I said my side, you said your side, I'm not budging at all.
Yeah,
like, there's no,
like, I know what you're saying. Like, they don't try to kind of make any agreements or disagreements. They're just like, I said my part. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yeah, it's all, because, like, I'm not budging, I'm not moving, and you're not moving, and that's it.
Like, it just becomes a stalemate at that point.
And so that's why I want this part of the show to be, is kind of like our attempts at, you know, what we can, what we think the world can do in order to kind of make everybody as happy as possible. Because that's when the.
And I mean, that's an extremely. Something that I just want to make clear. I don't know about how they feel. This is not in any way, shape, or form us being like, we know exactly what's right, and we're telling you guys what to do, and we know how to change the world, and it's simple as that.
No, that's just.
That's not what we're doing. We don't think we're that smart.
We're just trying to open everybody's minds to new
chilling.
Ideas. Yeah.
We're just straight vibing. Vibe checking. No, but, like, I just want to make that clear. We don't think we're smarter than anybody else. We don't think that we're like, we know the solution and all you have to do is do this.
Big no.
No, we're just saying our opinions, and if you choose to,
we're sharing our ideas, because that's how ideas get built, is with other ideas. Like, if you hear something and you have an idea, and you hear that person, like, that's how change is made. So that's what we're just gonna start the ball rolling. So what do you think about that? Like as far as like the rights part of it, it's like if there's a right, and like I said, whatever your stance on guns is, like that's like what people's argument is, and then like what do you think about like people that say that okay, well it's my right to have a gun, well what if it's their right? Well,
yeah, it just gets kind of like even in Roe v. Wade, like it was just like very iffy on whether it was constitutional or not. But they did rule it. They did rule abortion as like your constitutional right. But yeah, it was just really shady. Like the wording, it just went into very fine detail. So yeah, it's definitely a matter to be up for discussion. So.
Yeah. I mean, in your opinion, like, would you want, like with your beliefs, like, would you want it to be like there's no, like, any cases of
no excuse at all
abortion, or is it just like you think there should be like restrictions, or is it just like you think like there should be no cases?
What's the best case?
Because my only fear with like when people say they want to shut out abortion completely, like there would be no abortions legal, no legal abortions, nothing like that. My only fear with that is the only thing that would do would bring us back in time to dangerous abortions and unsafe abortions.
Because it's like anything, it's the same thing with guns. It's like there's gonna be someone's gonna do it. Like it's gonna get done.
Yeah.
So my only fear is like let's not go back to coat hangers.
It's like the black market for drugs, anything.
Drugs, gun,
stuff is outlawed. You see teenagers, jewels, weed, whatever it is. They find a way to get it.
Yeah. So that's my only fear is that if like I understand restrictions, I totally get that and stuff, but my only fear with like complete outlaws of abortion is that then we're just gonna find more lives being taken because if a woman tries to inflict that upon herself or her partner
there's no
attempts
I don't know the
inflict
answer to that question. Like I don't know, but I just know like that's an issue that I see.
The women would be dying too as well.
I mean, it definitely comes down to it. I'm aware people are still gonna try it, even though it's against the law. But that's kind of like the same thing with like doing anything bad that's against, or like I'm not saying.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
It's the same. People are gonna do it, but at least it'll be reduced significantly.
And there will be okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think that there's like, because I was also talking about this, like, if there's a way to compromise with it, like I said, obviously it's a last resort, right? It's a very last resort. But if there was a way to make a law, and like I said, all hypothetical here, like we have no idea what we're talking about really. We just kind of like, this is just an idea. If there was a law that made it so that, okay, maybe it's legal if the person is below, like if they want the kid, like they have a reason for it, and it's like maybe they're below a certain financial line where they literally would not be able to raise a baby, or obviously I know there's adoption, but if they want a kid, and like, is there any
also do they have because another thing that, sorry, this totally goes back into what I was saying before, but another thing is, do they have the health care to be able to have prenatal care? Because prenatal care is really important when you have a baby. You need to be sure that you're taking care of your body and that you're like taking the right vitamins and supplements, etc., to be able to have a healthy baby. And if people who believe that the government shouldn't be in charge of our health care and that people should have to pay for their own health care, well then if they're not getting health care needed beforehand, they don't have that money, then there could be a lot of complications and issues. Is there any
compromise, like not compromise, but is there any place that you're willing to kind of budge off, you know what I mean, like in order to work together? Is that like, would something like that make sense to you as far as
definitely with like the with like I guess like government programs for like healthcare, I believe there should be at least a minimum for the government to like supply like the one with those basic needs, when she's having a baby, but yeah.
So not necessarily the baby itself, but you're saying that like it would make sense for them to at least get the care that they need.
The care that they need to have the baby, but yeah.
Okay. All right, makes sense. Carter, you got something?
No, I mean Katie kind of had the whole action going on. Yeah.
If you didn't already, Carter shares the same belief that I do. If I'm, I don't want to talk for you.
No,
So yeah, and obviously this is a very black and white issue, or not black. I mean, there's
I
obviously.
was about to say the opposite.
there's
I was
no,
about to
there's
say
a-
this is an extremely
it's a
gray
gray
area that we're
area.
talking
But
about.
as far as like people's beliefs, there's no real way to get a compromise like on one, like for one. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. So
like you, either abortions are legal or they aren't. And it's
Yeah.
like there's obviously there's the gray area of exceptions and stuff like that, but there's always that general like main rule of if they're legal or they're not, and that's like where this is gray area. But with what we're doing is, like I said, start the conversation and to show you guys that working together is important, because that's, you know,
yeah. So that's like another thing.
Yeah.
Before I was like, I consider myself to be pro-life. Before all this, like I didn't know if I was pro-choice, pro-life. I didn't know anything about it. So what I did is just did a whole bunch of research and just gathered the facts and like as many facts as I could, and kind of just balanced them out. So yeah, that's how I came to my conclusion. Like I encourage everyone to do like
Yeah, that is
Yeah,
a
and it's
smart.
okay- and it's
That
okay
is
to
a
have-
smart decision.
it's okay to have whatever opinion that you want, but make sure you're
Yeah,
researching
definitely make sure
Yeah.
you're, like,
and make sure you
educated
know
about
what
it.
you're talking about and what you're saying is what you actually believe. Because
Yeah,
if you're
yeah.
if you have no idea, if you're just saying, oh, I'm pro-choice, I'm pro, whatever it is.
Yeah,
That's
just
another
don't go
thing.
with what's popular.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I
just
was
kind
gonna
of
say. I feel like it's important to have your own opinion that you've built up yourself
Exactly.
from trying to educate yourself. And I feel like a lot of people don't try to educate themselves like you did. I feel like they're just kind of like they hear either like friends or family or like people on TV, YouTube, like whatever.
yeah.
They hear them talk about it, and they think that because
Yeah,
that's like somewhat like cool or like.
Heard in
that's,
high
like,
school, yeah.
Oh, your student was absent. No, but I feel like people just try to go with what's popular, even though that's not what they kind of believe in, and then they kind of get lost in the whole
Yeah.
just agreeing with what's popular, even though that it might go against their moral values and beliefs.
And here's the other thing, I don't want to hear, and like I'm gonna be mad if I hear this, but if I don't
I don't want to hear.
I don't want to hear anybody coming at anybody for beliefs.
Yeah,
Like it's important that you can have your beliefs, and obviously I know it's hard because you have like your beliefs, and if someone
Right, you feel
someone
strongly
disagrees with
about
you, you
it.
feel
Yeah,
strong with you, and
yeah.
you feel like you don't like that person as a person, but like no, it's their belief, and it's important that we try to put that aside, because if you can be friends with those people even if you don't share the same beliefs, it's important because that way then over time
And our
you're
country
talking,
can work
you're
together.
You're talking over time. If you can get along, you can find common ground even where you don't expect it.
yeah,
So-
definitely. Like I'm not one of those people who are like outside outside the school screaming. Even though like
yelling at me, telling me
Yelling
I'm
at Carter,
stupid,
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
being
telling-
raised
telling
wrong.
me my parents
You're
would kill
dumb.
me.
even though like I get what they were trying to do, like you know trying to like persuade the youth, but yeah, I definitely agree there were better ways to go about it. Maybe not with all the screaming, but yeah, I mean peaceful protests. That's definitely a good way to get like your message out, like with the signs
Yeah.
and stuff.
That's another thing. Like, I'm all for voicing your opinion. First Amendment right. Go ahead, protest. Free speech. I'm totally all for that. I participated in stuff like that before. But I think it's just the way that you go about it, especially towards teenagers. If anyone's watching this who's an adult, I doubt there is, but who's thinking about, trying to persuade the youth towards something, I would say that, like, as a teenager, I think you guys could probably all agree that, like, we don't really want to be screamed at. Like, it's just not the way that, like, we feel like that's going to change our opinion, because at this age, like, I think a lot of us feel like there's a lot of different opinions that are being shoved at us. We're getting ready to vote. There's a lot of things that we're kind of taking into consideration right
Yeah.
now, and, like,
I think it's just like
it's a stressful political time for
Being yelled at makes me
being
wanna
this age.
listen.
yeah,
And so I think, like, when you're, like, being talked at,
Yeah.
if there's a teacher who's, like, yelling at you, you don't want to do it. But if
Well,
they
like-
talk to you and they sit down with you, like, it makes you more, like,
Yeah, that's
oh,
why-
I'll
Yeah.
think
Go
about
ahead, go
how
ahead.
you think.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you. You just want to like pull yourself away from all the noise and kind of just do your own research,
Yeah.
because everyone everyone has someone who's like influential on their life, and if they tell you something, you know, you're gonna kind of believe, but like you just have to
Be your own person.
do something yourself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think, like I said, we made good progress today. I wanted to conclude, or not conclude, but kind of almost wrap up by reading some of the responses to the poll that we put out, which is, how did you feel? How did you feel? Some of these are really fun. I'm gonna read the funny ones because I feel like we covered everything else.
Yeah.
But how did you feel about? How did you feel about protesters outside of Herndon High today? We want to hear from you. Katie put that out there.
I did on the Instagram at
Shap's
Shap's Basement Podcast. Go follow us.
We need more
Plug,
subscribers
plug.
subscribe to the channel. Okay. Okay. So I'm not gonna read the names except for the people that are on this set. But someone said they like babies a lot. Yes, they do. Carter said.
I don't even remember what I said.
Carter said.
I don't even remember answering the.
Do you want to read? Do you want to read what you said?
Yeah, sure.
Read it.
Wait,
Read it in the
there
mic.
was a
I know.
second part to-
Read it in.
Oh.
I know. Yeah.
Wait, which one do you want?
The
me-
first
I'll
one.
just read- I'll just read the whole thing because the second one that you're talking about was like I got cut off in the first one. I can't read anymore. I said it was pointless because it was the complete wrong way to go about it, and I said no high schooler needs to be getting yelled at by some boomers because that's how old they were.
Okay, boomer.
You know, baby boomer generation. So I don't know.
All right. So then.
Oh.
Huh?
Can we talk?
Yes. No. Continue.
Oh.
Ahaha.
Anyways.
No. Hey. Shit.
Anyways. Go ahead.
What were you gonna? No. Okay. Never mind. Anyway. Someone said they felt like a chicken nugget. I feel like a chicken nugget all the time.
Oh, true.
All right.
Yeah. That's all the fun. Sasha wasn't at school. I bet you got that phone call too. Yeah.
Some people who weren't there asked what they were protesting about.
I wasn't there.
Yeah. I didn't
However-
see it, but
We did not respond.
Yeah. Oh, you're sick. It's okay. Yeah. So anything else anyone wants to add or work together? That's my main message from this.
Yeah.
I agree.
Educate
Peace,
yourself.
love.
Don't go based
And
on
if you
what-
guys are getting ready to vote in the next election, it's extremely important and your voice needs to be heard, okay? Because some people say, oh, I'm just one vote. I'm just,
It matters,
18. But it does matter, and it's really important that you get your voice out there because no matter what it is, you deserve to be heard. And everyone, if you're eligible, go vote in the next election because we are the generation that is coming up, and we're the generation that is going to be, adults when our next president is in
We're gonna
office.
Impact.
And it's definitely going to impact our lives a lot. So go vote in the next election.
And don't be afraid to speak your mind.
Please do it.
Be smart about it though. All right, we're out.
Thanks for watching Shap's Basement.
Thanks for watching episode 7. We'll be back next week. I hope you liked it. I hope you watched the whole thing.
Also, if there's something you want to see or like you want us to talk about,
Yeah, we need ideas.
can you tell us? Because we'll just do whatever we want, but we don't know if that's what the audience wants to see. So if there's something you want us to talk about, if there's someone you want us to have on, if you want to be on, just let us know because it's a fun time in Shap's Basement. So
Yeah, so fun. I had to come back for a second round.
All right.
thanks for watching, everybody. Oh.
We'll see you next week.